following program on Ada Derana 24 is classified for general audience. It is intended for all ages. It contains little or no violence, no strong language, and little or no sexual dialogue or situations. The following program contains opinions of the participants and does not reflect the views and beliefs of the Derana Media Network. The network believes in a safe space for all ideas to be expressed without any censorship and on its duty to create such a platform for free speech. Viewer discretion is strictly advised.
A very good evening, everyone. Thank you very much for once again joining me on a new episode of Get Real, where we have conversations with notable newsmakers in Sri Lanka, trying to give you a different perspective than what is there in the mainstream media. Today is May 9th, 2023. It is an important day in order to understand and learn. Why do I say this is because we know how our country and where our country was back in 2022 at this time. So what are the lessons we've learned from that? As a nation, as a society, how exactly did we analyze the situation that occurred and apply the best solution for each and every one of us to get into a better state of life in this country. Living in Sri Lanka is now actually has become a very painful experience for its citizens. It's not exactly a happy occasion for each and every one. So how are we going to change that? If our mentality is as such that this solution is going to come from abroad or somewhere else, then once again it looks like we haven't learned anything. Joining me today in order to talk about the current status, where we can go, solutions that are there, is former chairman of Export Development Board, Mr. Suresh. Welcome back to the program. Thank you very much for being here. How are you, sir?
Very well, thank you.
Thank you. Life is treating you well.
Yes. Staying busy.
You remember what happened to this country. We went through an entire, I don't know whether it's an experimental process, but we went through a lot of hardships, and here we are. It looks like things are okay right now. It looks like on the surface, but is it the case is a question that we have to keep analyzing and trying to figure out. What do you think? Like, you were the former chairman of the Export Development Board. There was a lot of responsibility that your board had, because we are talking, in order for us to be self-sufficient, export is the way. We have to find everything that we can manufacture and send it across to the world, and whatever we can make out is the way we can actually increase our reserves, which was the primary issue of this entire crisis that we are facing right now. How do you see that at that particular point, soon after COVID, and then we moved into an economic crisis? Do you see there's a growth in exports, or do you still see we are applying the same solution in the same way, in the same things that we did in the past?
Mahieash, I think I would like to, from my experience at the Export Development Board and experiencing a huge disruption, global disruption during this time, I had my ear to the ground when it came to global economic situation. Yeah. There were red lights all over the place, certain things were going to happen. And at a time like that, the best thing is to look at your comparative advantages and make sure that you are focusing on those, right? And Sri Lanka has a lot of them. At this time, we have so many opportunities because there are new markets opening up, right? And a lot of Sri Lankan product is in demand overseas. I think something we don't realize enough is that we need promotion of the country, the image of the country. Okay, because we have enough product in this country to sell, and if we can also produce it in the quality that is required, right, and the volumes that are required, and the price that is required. Now, there is a lot of potential to do that if we are entrepreneurs. Now, one of the things I noticed at the Export Development Board was that many exporters or potential exporters that walk in the door are looking for handouts. And that was quite frustrating to me, because I felt like there is so much you can gain from the Export Development Board other than finance. Of course, I didn't have too many resources to hand out during my couple of years. And so I used to always say, but most important thing is to understand markets. Now, people have a tendency to develop a product before they look at the market. They develop a product all packaged and everything and say, please find a market for this. I think that's where we go wrong. I think we should now, today, with this smartphone, you can explore the world.
Yeah.
You can look at what is selling. You can look at the data, the statistics, everything is there. Then you find, okay, this is a product that Sri Lanka can produce. What is the quality requirement? What are the volume requirements? What are the basic price requirements? Now, these basics are not priorities. I have not been priorities in this country.
Why is that? Why do you think?
I don't know, because I think people are just stuck on one thing, I've heard people coming and saying, you guys are not doing enough promotion.
Exactly.
Right?
That's the question now. If you talk about tourism, every time the blame goes to the tourism ministry or the tourism development authority, saying you guys are not promoting Sri Lanka all over the world. But then, like you just said, we have this device which we can do it by ourselves, and we can keep screaming to the world. Best example is last year we showcased to the world, but it was a very negative image, but we can learn from that and say there is the potential. So in that instance, who should take the responsibility here, sir? Because is it the entrepreneur on the ground level, or is it the government, or where is this blockade that is not helping? Like every single time, if you go to any entrepreneur on the ground level and ask what's the problem, these guys are not helping us. That's basically what they will be saying. So where do you think we have to switch?
Yeah, I think Sri Lanka needs to celebrate entrepreneurship. That's the bottom line, because there are so many entrepreneurs who have succeeded through this mess, if you will. Now with all the challenges that we had in the 2.5 years, we managed to increase exports during COVID, right? Then 2022 was a record year for our exports. Now, what did we not have in 2022? I had 2 presidents, 5 ministries, 5 ministry secretaries, 6 ministers, right? All in like a period of 6 months. But we still managed to grow exports. So this is in the hand of the exporter. And what the government needs to do is clear the path for an exporter to export. Right?
What are the blockades that is there right now?
So I think a lot of it is perception. Okay? A lot of people, without looking at the opportunity, they look at the challenges only. Right? Now, I know many exporters who are managing somehow, right? Because most of the problems we had during the COVID time were unprecedented, and the solutions were sort of not one-size-fits-all solutions. So I told my staff, we all got together and said, hey, we have to find individual solutions for these people, and we can't expect the president or whoever to come up with some solutions. We have to look at practical solutions. Now, when the diesel crisis came, right? There was no national solution for it.
Yeah.
Long before the QR code, we had to, figure something out, and we had to keep diesel moving, you see. So between CPC and IOC, I was in and out of their offices daily, finding solutions, and the solution that was there in Colombo is not the solution in Galle, not the solution in Trincomalee. Right? All these places had different solutions. So we have to understand there is no way the government can just go and say, we can solve all these problems, right? There is a learning curve for all this stuff. There is a learning curve. So for me, if you are an entrepreneur, you can take up these challenges. And a challenge is something you enjoy, right? And I know a lot of people talk about the regulatory barriers and things like that. I, for one, usually like to go straight to the top of a department, the chairman or the director general, and have a chat and say, hey, I am in a business. Now this is what I did with my own export company, 42 years. If I have an issue with customs, I go and have a chat with the director general. And I say, sir, here's my problem.
Communication, direct communication.
And very few people do that.
And I want to talk about a little bit on the exporting side of things, because you have a wealth of experience on that particular side. One of the things we keep hearing, a recurring factor to Sri Lankan exports, is the quality. So the quality that is requested by these high buying countries, high purchasing countries, are not in par with what Sri Lanka is providing at this moment. If you're sending tea, we are not sending the quality they expect, whether it's in Dubai or in America or in Europe. But then there's this third party who comes into the middle. They buy the raw product from us, and then they do the quality building, and then they sell it for a very high price. That particular process has been quite ongoing. We have not been able to break that. Why do you think is the reason for that, and what is your experience telling you? Like, if the European market is asking for a certain level of quality, maintaining that quality, what is the red tape that we have here in order that we can't achieve?
So now, if we are talking about agricultural produce, I think it's a mindset of are you a trader or are you an industrialist who's going to add value and sell it? A trader's mentality, I suppose, is quick to sell whatever comes on your plate, do a quick transaction, make some money in a short time. That's the trader mentality. But an entrepreneur would say, how am I going to add some value? How am I going to put the tea in a tea bag, brand a beautiful box, and ship it to these end users?
And that is required, right?
Yeah,
because
and that is being done. Even in the tea industry, the world, take the big brands in tea, right? They are dominating. Everybody knows those brands in the tea world. Right? Now take our apparel industry. We are at the top of the world. There is in volume we are not. Obviously, we are a small country compared to Bangladesh or Vietnam. But we have one of the highest quality products in our range, in our sportswear, in our lingerie, in a lot of apparel.
Our products is it being sought after by these countries?
Yeah.
And then why isn't that being trickled down? Because if you look at certain exporting products, it doesn't look like as if that particular exporter has the ability, know the knowledge in order to understand, okay, here are the requirements, how am I going to achieve this in this local level, and actually adding value and selling it at a higher price, which obviously then it will come back into this country.
Yeah.
So that cumbersome process, where do you think, why don't we have the knowledge?
So let's take agricultural produce and apparel. This applies even if we compare tea and apparel. I think the answer is there. What's the difference? Now in apparel, we have an industry of entrepreneurs who are together, and actually we are very fortunate that from the beginning this was a formal industry. It was made to be formal, okay? And in the early 90s, I remember if you were building factories and all, you had to build it to code, you had to build a new factory, the government was not going to support you to convert a house into a factory. You know, there were things which kept our standards high from the beginning, and we had excellent leadership in the apparel sector, and they brought the whole industry together. And today, to date, one of the best forums or lobbies in an industry is the apparel lobby, you know, the Joint Apparel Associations Forum. I think that is a hugely important factor for the success of the apparel industry. If you look at especially agriculture, it's very disorganized. And then the industry is not together, right? The Export Development Board has our advisory committees and has everybody coming together. And I think part of the problem is, again, we have half the table is traders, the other half are industrialists, and they will never see eye to eye because they are both different, right? So I think we need to, Sri Lanka is a small country with a small amount of product coming out, right? But it's high quality. Naturally, we have been blessed with this high quality.
Are we asking for high prices as well?
Well, we can demand high prices, you know.
Are we doing that right?
Not enough. Not enough. Part of the problem is the people who have the markets have a hard time procuring the product. I'm one of them, right? Today I have more market than I have product because it doesn't come to me in that quality. So when I talk to the farmers find it easier to give it to a trader who will pay money and buy it for a cheaper price. The farmer just washes his hands off. The farmer is not trying, you know, if you tell him you can add 5 times the value if you do it.
Don't you think the problem here is the lack of knowledge in building a brand? Because if I
before you go there, I think there's a lot before that, right? And that is, to do all that, you have to understand the industry, okay? Now the farmer doesn't understand the industry, okay? He just knows to plant something and grow something, right? But he has to look at the market dynamics. Now take turmeric and ginger. Those are both grown in the same property, right? 1 year turmeric prices go up, farmers all start planting turmeric, right? Now that has happened right now, okay? There is a glut of turmeric and there is no ginger. Now the ginger prices are high. Mark my words, next year ginger prices are going to come down to rock bottom, and we won't have enough turmeric. So this has gone on for a long time.
Isn't it the responsibility of institutions like the Export Development Board, the Trade Ministry, all these institutions to come up and actually make sure that they put some kind of a process in place and try to get the farmer, the trader, everybody to understand it's about sustaining this pipeline right throughout the year, not just one going up and one falling apart. And like that, isn't it the responsibility of the government, the boards like yours, the place that you formerly worked for? Isn't it their responsibility? And more importantly, what I want to know is, why hasn't it been happening thus far?
You know, since you put it that way, if you look at the government institutions, we have many institutions that have that mandate. Now, to tell you the truth, Export Development Board does not really have a mandate for supply development. Okay, we have the mandate to tell the supplier what quality is required. Okay, but we don't have a farmer network, or we don't have an extension service network that can go and work with farmers to produce that quality. Okay, that's with the Agriculture Department or the Export Agriculture Department and so on. So now the farmer doesn't know whether to go to the Export Development Board, whether to go to the export. So they go to everyone. And they are basically, when they come, they just want some subsidy or some handout. not the real, they are not looking for the real knowledge in how to develop a business. And anything, if you have a trader mentality, you are looking for profits from day one. And with industry, that doesn't happen. Now that's part of the problem. That's where there is a lack of entrepreneurship in this country. How can you develop? You talk to the big brands in Sri Lanka, the people who have been, they started small and grew up, And today, in the global sense, it is very important to collaborate.
That's a very good point, which I also want to ask. You just mentioned there are big brands in certain fields, whether it's in the textile industry, in the tea industry. But you don't see, honestly, these big brands taking the time to go back into the field and, ask the small, let's say if we take tea, the small tea planters or the tea exporters, for them to share the knowledge, say this is how I did it and this is how I achieved this particular feat. You have to do this. Here are the areas. That sharing of knowledge does not exist. One person is getting the best out of everything and the rest is just trying to figure out heads or tails. Isn't that one of the issues that we have, the top tier always wants to be the best and make sure that there is no competition?
Yes and no, because yes, that is true, and sometimes it is inevitable because the big players would have the best markets, and it's very difficult for a small person to go and find that kind of market. It's impossible. Now I get a lot of requests for people who have never exported, who want me to find them a market. So I said, put yourself in the shoes of the buyer.
Yeah.
Right? When a buyer comes to the Export Development Board or comes to me, he's expecting some kind of guarantee, not even some kind of assurance that he's going to get a reliable product. Right? But if you haven't exported anything before, if I go and tell a buyer, this guy is a new guy, nice chap, I have met him, he's really a super guy to talk to, right? Is a buyer going to buy from you or going to buy from somebody who has 100 years of experience exporting? So we have to understand that unless we do some kind of integration, the big and the small, which has happened in apparel. Apparel is probably the only sector where it has happened well. And there are other industries where there is, small producers linked up with big producers, providing, my favorite story is about the Toyota Corporation. Toyota, when I visited the Toyota, one of the Toyota factories, the guide who was taking us around said that Toyota Corporation is 2,000 SMEs producing, from the seat belt to the, seats to everything is built elsewhere. They come and they just put it back together. So that's the kind of way we should start thinking. Someday we may be able to put a car together ourselves, but until that time we should be making the parts and do what we are good at. Now this is probably one of the most important mistakes that are being made, that we need to realize, and that is that we try to do things we don't know to do. Right? We may be having, like this is the problem with a lot of innovators and a lot of entrepreneurs also, where we are good at innovating something and building something, but we don't know how to market it, we don't know how to sell it, right? And you talk to an innovator, he's going to talk to you about jargon you will never understand, right? Unless we hire somebody or get that help to do the marketing, we are in trouble. And that happens a lot.
Best example is I think mechanical arms, limbs. There was a student who created, and I think other than mornings, had that person as a guest, and he knows the knowledge, and he can actually develop limbs for people who are disabled, and for a very cheaper price. Doesn't know how to market. Guess who came? Investor from Dubai. he got the guy to invest in Dubai, and apparently Dubai is benefiting from this particular product which we've created, and we are not getting anything out of it. So that is one of the best examples. I want to talk a little bit about other industries as well, but before that, let's take a short commercial break. I'm in conversation with former chairman of the Export Development Board, Suresh. We'll be right back. Welcome back, everyone, to Get Real. I'm in conversation with the former chairman of the Executive Export Development Board, Mr. Suresh. We've been talking about issues that the export development industry been facing thus far, and how we have to change our mentality in order to gain a buck, not just for ourselves but for the country as well. I want to talk about, Mr. Dimel, about organic farming. Now, that particular word is a taboo word in Sri Lankan society today. Not in the world, but in Sri Lankan society, we don't want to talk about organic farming because of the negative experience we had with regard to how it was implemented. Not the concept, but the implementation had a lot of faults. We have to accept that. But we can't throw away this concept of organic farming, because the world, a huge potential market exists, and it is for us to go and break into it and make a mark for Sri Lanka. Now, at this particular moment, our entire, like you just said, our exporting concepts are mainly on tea, textile, all that kind of very, traditional exporting stuff. Now, here comes organic farming. How do you see this? Does Sri Lanka has the potential to actually break into that market, the huge, vast amount of market, and provide a very quality product? Or did we completely lose the plot by trying to implement it the way we did it?
First of all, we have been exporting organic product for decades. Ever since organic certification came, which was about 30 years ago, we have been exporting organic certified product out of Sri Lanka. We of a very high standard. Currently, we have about 450 exporters who are organic certified, and about 12,000 farmers who are organically certified.
What type of products do they sell?
Anything from spices to tea to even organic rubber they have, but they do have a lot of fruits and vegetables and things like that, and it can be done. And really, we are an island, therefore making the whole island organic would have huge credibility. And we also have some of the important features to be a credible organic supplier, and that is that, first of all, we are an island. We are the best biodiversity is incredibly important for organic agriculture. And we also have traditional practices. Okay, we have a lot of traditional practices that have proven over the years that that is the way to do organic agriculture. Now, you talked about the implementation issues. Yes, it is easier, I suppose, to bring hybrid seeds and apply chemicals and get a better yield. But what we have to understand is, for 100 years we grew tea and produced the world's best tea without any chemicals. Okay? What we do to destroy the ground by applying chemicals is a cost that we never consider. Now the whole world is in that conversation today, and the consumers are requiring that. As we speak, this year Germany introduced a supply chain due diligence act, which requires social and environmental compliance, requirements, right? Which are very
which means
stringent.
like all the products that come into Germany has to be in this particular quality.
And the importer is responsible. So there are importers now who are coming to Sri Lanka, working with farmers in Sri Lanka and buying the product and taking it out.
Let me ask this simple question. Is it hard to convert ourselves into that particular organic farming field? Because right now we are pumping so much of chemical into our food products, and whatever we get and whatever there is a little bit, we will try to export that. That particular market is dying. Now how can we convert? Because what we try to do was completely omit the whole chemical farming and try to switch overnight, which nobody understands.
The thing is, there was some debate on that because there had to have been a couple of years worth of chemicals in the country already at that time. Okay, and I think if we worked together to convert, we could have taken 2 years to convert. We would have still had enough chemicals to convert, right? But that's arguable. Anyhow, the important thing is the true value. There's no country in the world has had this opportunity to reliably, credibly say that we are an organic country, right? And which Sri Lanka, to date, actually, I have been going to these trade fairs since that time because I'm also an exporter of organic product. And my buyers are still because they say one important thing happened, and that is that Sri Lanka was recognized globally by the organic market as a country that has huge potential to grow organic produce. Okay, so they won't mix our. They say we are looking at our livelihoods, and we would like to get organic black pepper, for instance, right? Because black pepper is important for our lifestyle, and they would like to have clean organic black pepper from Sri Lanka because of the quality of the black pepper is so good.
Let me ask you this question now. During the whole conversation about the organic farming that occurred last year or prior to that, was based on the fact that if you're a farmer and you switch from chemical fertilizer to organic fertilizer, you're going to lose the yield. You're not going to get the crop that you usually get. Thus, it will actually affect your bottom line. Thus, you will be in debt, and that will continue to spiral into something that you cannot recover from. Is that the truth?
Well, if you implement it that way, but I've been involved in a lot of conversions where we converted from chemical to organic, and over a period of time there is
how to do it. Just in your experience, how should a person do this?
Now take spices for instance, right? In general, spices are grown by small farmers or home gardens, right? Home gardens don't apply chemicals at all anyway. So majority of spices coming out of Sri Lanka are reliable because home gardens don't use chemicals, and you don't need chemicals, right? So a lot of the problem is runoff from another plantation or something like that, and this monoculture. Okay, monoculture is where you require a lot of chemicals. If you have these forest garden type products, it's a no-brainer, right? But the important thing is there needs to be education, there needs to be hand-holding, there needs the people who know need to go. So from day one, if you demonize something, then you're already starting from way back. So my feeling is that yes, it can be done, and actually it is happening. And whether we like it or not, it is happening because the world is demanding organic, and people are starting to realize the true cost of chemical agriculture.
Absolutely, you don't want to put any kind of chemicals into your body, and you want to get the best. And there is also available in our supermarkets right now with the label saying organic. Now, if everyone starts doing this, then there should be some kind of a quality maintenance, which if you are going to send it abroad, then we have to adhere to that. Is there a body that actually looks into this and try to tell everybody, no, this is not the quality, this needs to change from this to that, or something of that in Sri Lanka right now, or something that we have to really look into and establish?
Yeah, it's in process. The Export Development Board has the National Organic Control Unit, which is a collaboration between Export Development Board, Export Agriculture Department, and Institute of Standards, and all the related agriculture bodies have come together to create this organic standards. And there is a regular conversation. There is an advisory committee that helps the organic producers, the organic exporters are supporting it a lot. And it is happening, slow, but it is happening.
Something I hope everybody take into heart and make sure that we have a potential here. We have a enormous potential, break into this market and be a leader in that field, just like how our tea is a leader in that industry and our textile is a leader in that industry. More to talk with the former chairman of the Export Development Board, Mr. Suresh. This is Get Real. We'll be right back. Welcome back, everyone. You're watching Get Real. I'm in conversation with the former chairman of the Export Development Board, Mr. Suresh Dimel. We've talked about organic farming and about the exporting industry and the issues that we've been facing thus far and what kind of things to rectify. Another exporting, what can I say? I don't want to call it a product, but it's getting exported. But we don't want that to be exported, which is our human resource. In very heavy numbers, it's going, our expertise is just going out of the country, and it is not going out with a positive method. They're not going thinking, we have to put Sri Lanka back on track. That's not what's happening. They're just fed up and they're leaving in all the industries. As the former chairman of the Export Development Board, I understand you were not hoping for this particular product to go away. How do we address this? Because getting people interested in rectifying Sri Lanka is a very daunting task, and it is getting hammered from every side of the conversation. Even within Sri Lanka, if you look at our brand, it took a hit last year. It is no longer this very stable, very politically strong country. It is just a mess with a nation that defaulted, which is not good for business. Now we are with the IMF and all that nonsense. What exactly do you think, how are we going to get people interested in Sri Lanka back again and not be afraid, going out from this country left, right and center, and we are losing. We're losing. We have to train people from the ground up. How do you see this entire situation?
And we have to say, even for export development or tourism development or whatever, we need our labor. It's very important, and
quality labor.
Export quality labor, yeah, exactly. And we lose the best. We lose the skilled labor. Now, how do we make Sri Lanka attractive for these people to stay here, right? First of all, we have to celebrate something in Sri Lanka. We don't have a celebrating nature. We celebrate, social celebrations happen all the time, but we need to celebrate. For me, the most important thing is to celebrate entrepreneurship. Celebrate successful people, right? I think it is very important, and it's a global conversation. This is not only applies to Sri Lanka. I've seen it talked about to over 100 countries, because I belong to this, I'm actually representing the Global Entrepreneurship Network, where many countries are dealing with this, where they have to make their country attractive for their people. So this is something that how needs to happen bottom up as well. I think that we have to look at success stories of people. Now, I came to Sri Lanka in 1980. I graduated in 1987 when Sri Lanka was burning in the north and the south. And I don't think we want to even remember that era, because if our youth today think that Sri Lanka is in bad shape, I think I remember it being much worse at that time. So never mind. We have, and then through a protracted war and all that kind of stuff, we not only survived, we grew, we improved. I mean, we always say things like, we haven't done anything for 75 years, nothing has happened for 75 years. I remember a person at the top of Shangri-La Hotel saying this story, right? And I was thinking to myself, what was there? I remember, 75 years ago, the Colombo Club was the biggest building in that side of Galle Road, right? So we have to understand that there are a lot of things that have happened. Foreigners are very interested in Sri Lanka, and we have a lot of resources that can... Now we sit and we use the government as the scapegoat, and we have a perfect, every government that comes in is... The same thing applies in other countries.
Yeah.
If you're living in England, if you're living in US where I lived, the people there complain about that, right? So, but we take it, we leave the country. But that's not the way to do it, right? There are a lot of successful people. Find out how they succeeded.
That's something that I think last time also when you were here, we've been talking about celebrating local success stories. The sad part about it, if there is a success story locally, how our people respond to it is like, oh kahora, kohomari gahala tamai giye, pagawa gatta, all this nonsense is being said. But if it is Bill Gates, or celebrate him, sometimes they would even light a lamp in front of a picture of him, because that is the kind of mentality that is there. They really don't celebrate our local entrepreneurship and the feat that they've achieved. I honestly think one of the reasons is because there is a detachment from these success stories and the society. The success stories are not with the society. They detach themselves and they go into a little bit of their own silo and they live there. And so all these people see this big thing that is away. And don't you think it would be vibrant and it would actually solve a lot of problems if this mixes together?
Absolutely, absolutely. I think that's the bottom line, and we call it now, since I am involved in this global entrepreneurship network, what we are trying to do is to build ecosystems, entrepreneurial ecosystems, where all the stakeholders stay connected. I mean, today it's easy because through this you can have a website, you can have a WhatsApp group where people are connected. Now, something that has happened to us in the last 2-3 years are these groups. There are a lot of people doing business in this, right? And find out there is also bad stuff, but then there is so much good stuff happening. I mean, there are WhatsApp groups now that have eliminated all the bad stuff, and they only focus on their core objective of that group. And that's the way it has to evolve, right? You can't just demonize something and expect result. So how do we celebrate? We have to create platforms. We have to create platforms where you said, why are these things detached? So we have to now, like we have Lions clubs and Rotary clubs where people come together, then we have to have entrepreneurship clubs as well. It's happening. These co-working places and things like that are happening in Colombo. They are also starting to do this outside of Colombo, and we are encouraging, like the district chambers of commerce, we are making them aware of this stuff. How do we network? How do we create these strong bonds? And how do we create a strong ecosystem locally? And there are examples all over the world where countries have come out of various challenges with this. Don't
you think that's a very productive and very positive way to rebuild the economy?
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's the only way I can see a solution, because as an entrepreneur myself, And having invested in Sri Lanka starting in 1990, and or having lived in Sri Lanka since 1990 after I came back from the US. And before that, while I was in the US, my business started. My father started the business 12 years before that. So when, we went through all this stuff, and if you only look at the challenge without looking at the opportunity, you're in trouble.
Absolutely.
And this world is full of challenges and opportunities. And I heard that in the Chinese language, that's one word for challenge and opportunity. And that's, maybe there's something for us to learn from that.
Exactly, and that is the problem, Mr. Dimel, that most of our people don't learn. They go through it, they experience it, but never learn from it, because if we have learned, then we should have actually be Singapore by now and have...
No, and also I think we should not really compare. Sri Lanka is a unique country. We have a unique bunch of people. I like not to compare, because I don't think there are comparable countries, really. I have traveled to 100 countries in the world, but I still can't find a country that we can emulate, We can't. We are different. Our size is different, our culture is different, our heritage is different. So many things are different, right? And why? Let's do it our way.
Exactly. That's what we really have to get to. Let's do it our way and actually rebuild this country. We're running out of time.
Let's do it. That's the problem. We are not doing it. We are just
talking about it.
We are leaving the country. That's the worst part.
Yeah. Mr. Suresh Dimel, the former chairman of the Export Development Board, my appreciation and thank you for being here. I really appreciate you coming on the show. Well, that's all the time we have for you tonight. I hope it was very productive for you to listen to Mr. Dimel and try to understand the importance of our country. Is something that I've been always screaming on TV, either in this program or another one. The importance of our country, and there is no other Sri Lanka in the world for Sinhalese, for Tamils, for Burghers, for Muslims, for anybody to live. This is the only country we have, so it is our duty to make sure that we rectify the problems, see the opportunities, and actually, live a better quality life. Thank you for watching. Have a good day.